Hello there. This is Sean Herzog,
And Stephen Reed.
and this is a Stephen Herzog production. Our project is called Frank McCourt Through Irish Eyes.
So, tell us about your childhood and all the obstacles you've overcome. Frank's response to this question was,
Even though we were poor, at the lowest level, even below the lowest economic level, we were always excited. It was rich in the sense that we had a lot to look up to look forward to, a lot to aspire to, a lot to dream about. But economic circumstances, it was desperate. It was Calcutta with rain. At least they were warm in Calcutta, but it was desperate because certain things, greens like my father being an alcoholic, my mother having too many babies in too short a time, and no work available in Ireland. And even when my father did get a job, he drank the wages. Then there was the kind of hard schooling we had with schoolmasters, who ruled with a stick, and then because the overwhelming presence of the church was imbued with us with fear all the time. So it was fear, dampness, poverty, alcoholism, fear of the church, fear of school masters, fear in general. As a child, you almost died of typhoid, is that correct?
I had typhoid, yeah, because there was a laboratory that we all shared in the lane. All the families come and empty their buckets. They used the bucket in the house, in the bedroom, for everything, and emptied it into the laboratory. And it would overflow, and there was waste, dirt, pee, piss, excrement everywhere. Flies, rats, everything coming to were attracted to this laboratory. And our door would be open, and our door sat catty corner with the door of the laboratory. We could see them coming. We'd say, "Oh God, shut the door, shut the door. Bonnie Sexton is coming with her bucket." And she was the worst bucket in the lane. We became connoisseurs of the stink. So the flies would go in there, and they'd come out, and they'd settle on the sugar bowl that we had. When we had jam, they'd be lapping on it at the jam, and I got typhoid fever out of it. And in those days, they didn't have the medicines, or if they had them, they weren't available to the likes of me. So we spent 3.5 months in the hospital in the summer, which nearly killed me. So, were you a good student while you were in school?
Frank McCourt said, I was, I suppose, because there was no choice. They'd beat the hell out of you if you didn't do your work. Some of us were quicker than others. Some kids were very slow, and they suffered from it, because the masters would get irritable. They wanted you to know, and if you didn't know, if you didn't comprehend, they would haul you out of your seat and knock you around the room, which is not advanced pedagogy.
What about teachers? In the midst of the harsh schooling, are there teachers who influenced you or opened up possibilities for you?
They didn't have the human touch that American teachers have, I think, but they did other things, and they rolled in a way. They had style. When I got together with my people, my own age, and talked about Lanemead's National School, we can still talk about all the teachers, how distinctive they were, from the first teacher, Tom Scowen, who taught the first grade. At the end of every day, Tom Scowen became the music teacher. He'd stand us up, and we'd sing in Irish, and English, and Latin. He had a way of teaching that was fairly brutal, but still very much musical. He taught us all the Irish ballads and some American stuff, and Gregorian or plain chant. The last teacher I had was a man named O'Harlan, but he was the only one who offered words of encouragement, who told us we were distinct, unique individuals with a right to think for ourselves. And that was just before we left Lanemead's National School. He told me, my boy, you're a literary genius. You can imagine what I had to put up with at the schoolyard with all the others. Hey, McCourt, you're a literary genius. Look at him. Look at the literary genius. But it wasn't negative. It was just teasing. But they respected him and respected me for being picked up by Mr. O'Harlan.
What did you do to earn the label of literary genius at such a young age?
I think I was always attracted to writing. I always wanted to write because for me, it was magic to get a piece of paper and put words on it. As I'm always saying, to put together words that were never before put together by anybody. You take two words that were never joined together like a skintling's turnip. I would put words together like that just to keep the language fresh. When I was 9 or 10, I was trying to write a detective novel, an English detective novel, set in London, which I had never seen. All I knew about London was what I'd read in English detective novels. So I was always up to something like that, writing little playlets that'd make my brothers cut in, acting. All the time in school, if they told me to write an essay of 150 words, I'd write 500 words. So the master said, Stop, McCourt, stop. That's enough. Stop. If any might read it to class, and then, of course, I'd be teased again in the schoolyard For Jesus' sake, McCourt, we stopped writing. We had to listen to it. So, what did a 13-year-old do in Ireland?
I got a job at the post office delivering telegrams. You had to take kind of a test to get into the post office for what they called a temporary telegram boy. And then you could later go on to a school and get a permanent telegram boy job. And if you got that, then later you could become a postman and maybe a clerk in the post office selling stamps, and maybe rise in the ranks and become an inspector. Well, I went in at 14 and I delivered telegrams for 2 years. I knocked on every door in Limerick. The population of Limerick at that time was about 55,000. So I think I knocked on every door in Limerick, threw telegrams in the window, under the door, everything. Was attacked by dogs and irritate people who didn't get the telegram they wanted. They'd attack you literally. What were you thinking when you came to America?
When I arrived here, my condition was very poor. Emotionally, psychologically, and even physically. I had no self-esteem because of what I came from. No education. Everybody was saying, oh, you have to have a high school diploma in this country. I couldn't say I only went to primary school in Limerick.
What were most people's reaction to you when you came to America?
The minute I opened my mouth, they'd say, oh, you're Irish. Suddenly, I was labeled. I wasn't a human being. In Ireland, I was just a low-class type. But here, I'm a low-class Irish type. An Irish low-class type. So I didn't know. Somehow I had to deal with that. Oh, you're Irish. And at that time, that was 1949. There's still some kind of lingering residue of prejudice against the Irish. People used to tell me all the time, up and down New England, I'm in New York. There were people signs saying, no Irish need apply. Even the Irish Americans would listen to me and they patronized me. I was a bit simple, as if I'd just come off a farm. And I knew better than that. I knew I was better than that. People who, Irish Americans, who were running elevators and working as porters, they were looking down on me. I knew then that I was getting at the bottom of the heap. This is Frank when he was serving in the army. So you were a teacher. What was that like?
It was getting up in the morning at 6:30 to take the ferry to Staten Island to McKee Vocational High School and to go into class. 5 classes of tough kids who were not a bit interested in what I had to say, so I had to hook them. And I was thrown into this. As I told you before, I had no high school education myself. I had never been in a high school, so I had to. Nobody told me what to do. They just threw me into this classroom, and here I was, in front of these American teenagers who were a species from another world to me. While teaching, did you learn anything from the kids?
All the years I was teaching, I was learning. That was the main thing in my life, I think. I became a human being from those classes, because I wasn't. I was kind of a stick of dynamite when I came to New York. When I started always teaching, but over the years, McKee, years at Seward Park High School down the lower east side of Manhattan, especially the 18 years at Stuyvesant High School, that was my university. And boy, I'm a late bloomer. It took me a long time to come to grips with myself and never mind the kids. But other than that, I think, in many ways, they were more mature than I was, these American teenagers, because I was 19, my mental age was about 11. That's what I brought with me from Ireland, the baggage and the fear and the anger. This is again Frank, but a little bit older this time. So, where did you get the motivation of writing Angela's Ashes?
Kids were asking me about my life. I would dole out a few anecdotes, and they kept saying, oh, you should write a book. You should write a book. And I thought I should write a book. And I was trying, and every summer I would try to write this book. And you can't do it. It's like running a marathon. You can't say, oh, I'm going to run the marathon. You have to do 9 months of training in advance, at least. And it's the same thing with writing. You have to get the rhymes, and you have to, above all, find the voice. And it took me all those years. Not until I retired, but I had the material. That's the main thing. The material was circling around my head and lying there in my notebooks, waiting to be tapped.
The rest of these are a few pictures we found of Frank before his sad, unfortunate demise. This is one of the many awards Frank has won. This has been a Stephen Herzog production, with me, Deshaun Herzog,
Me, Stephen Reed.
signing off.